streetlights surround me in the wall-to-wall prison of my city. Flickering dirty neon over alleys, mean and dirty streets, while my neighborhood is torn down around.
Hello, everybody. From that nightclub, that persistent nightclub at the end of the world, is Michael C. Rupert, Tracker of Truth, with you on the 24th of November, 2013. As we get into this tonight, I am so exceptionally aware of the fury, the relentless, driven, obsessive fury with which the human race continues to pursue its extinction, its death, in an effort to avoid shadows that it will not face. We're still waging war all over the planet. We're still fracking. We're still chasing shale oil and shale gas, and we are talking about more nuclear projects, and Fukushima is still out of control, and the climate is still deteriorating at a breakneck pace. Just some of the highlights this week that really exemplified this, that puts you in a place where you cannot get sidetracked. It's more and more difficult to get sidetracked by some of these sophistic arguments that just want to kind of make you think that this isn't happening. It's abundantly clear. An oil pipeline exploded in China 2 days ago, killing 35 and setting the ocean on fire near China's largest oil port. That was on thinkprogress.org. The following has been posted 15 times or so on my Facebook page. It's incredibly popular, a great sign that people are becoming aware. Activist Post had a story a couple days ago saying that 7 volcanoes in 6 different countries all started erupting within hours of each other, and I am really grateful to see so many people becoming so aware of the earth changes that are taking place and extraordinarily underway and accelerating seismic events, volcanoes, weather events. It is clear that Mother Earth is alive, but these 7 volcanoes went off in a new island, appeared off Japan, 7,000 miles away, in Mexico and Colima. In Guatemala, the Fire Mountain erupted. In Vanuatu, the Yasur volcano erupted, and Mount Etna has been putting on quite a display. And I was very pleased to see that so many people were so taken by this story. But on the darker side, Robin Westenra, the indefatigable and wonderful Robin Westenra on Facebook, put up a story this week from E&E News. 28% of the polar bears with skin observed have skin lesions, hair loss, and tumors. Seals and walrus are also turning up with that. The evidence of our horrendous contamination already by Fukushima is building everywhere. It's hard to miss with so many other things. We'll get to that in a second. But from Japan itself, Nuclear News reported on November 21st, TEPCO workers' deaths are not reported, and if you think this is venal, I'm going to top that in a second. TEPCO workers' deaths are not reported. A witness working there at TEPCO said she said that there have been so many workers dead without being reported. Some died during the 2-day break, like a weekend. Some didn't turn up the next morning and were found dead. They died, off the site. Those who died haven't been measured for how much exposure they got. TEPCO does not count and report the dead unless they die during their work hours. And so there was one other story which I was unable to run up to put in here, but I know that one of my Facebook friends will find it. It was either Fukushima Diary or E&E News this week also reported, and this was while I was out looking for rags, that TEPCO has had an organized and the Yakuza campaign to get so-called mentally disabled or workers to take the jobs and signing them up. And there was some discussion about Japanese culture not relishing being ashamed of those with physical defects, those with mental defects. It's very different from tribal indigenous cultures that I'm familiar with, and my feeling is that when someone who is born into a tribe or a family, they're considered a blessing and someone who brings great spiritual gifts, but apparently not in Japan. But that's pretty venal. It's pretty ugly, and that's the ugliness that has not changed as we approach, the Black Friday, and on all of this madness that is still, everybody's moving. The powers that were are moving faster and harder. In the midst of all that, I was so relieved this week to see an episode of Peak Moment TV. Janiyah Donaldson has been around for a long time. I've done several interviews with them over the years. She had an episode, Peak Moment. That's Peak Moment TV. Google it. You'll find it right away. On the 21st with Carolyn Baker and Dave Pollard, that was an absolutely relievingly, breathtakingly mature discussion about the fact that the human race is in hospice, that our time is over, that we are facing imminent death. And I have been relieved on many fronts to see a great many presentations on many levels this week, reflecting that deep maturity and reflecting the fact that we and those of us in this audience are part of hospice workers. We are part of a very special group of human beings on this planet now, in that so many of us, and I would even include my friend who I admire greatly, Graham Hancock, who gave a great talk in New York this week, which I posted on the website. It went up yesterday. About dying and about death and about the other worlds. Terence McKenna's been up on my list a lot lately, and I'm very relieved to see so much awareness out there, and the fact that it's growing, and that we are really in a special place and with a special group of people, and we all hold ourselves tight to each other because we are here to help each other and ourselves and to lead the way, even into our own death. There is meaning to everything, especially at the moment thereof. Today, I was compelled to write an open letter to Arnie Gundersen, and I have the greatest respect for Arnie Gundersen. I've been singing his praises nonstop since March of 11. On Facebook and on this radio show, I have quoted him. I have referred to his work. We have been enormously grateful to Arnie, and I've invited him to be on the show twice, and he's incredibly busy. I am not feeling snubbed or anything at all. I asked first, I think in 11, but we got a response back. He just wanted to talk about science, aware that I was, that I have this other stink on me, but that's fine because he's just been doing great work. I have no criticism. I asked again about 2-3 weeks ago, and I had no response. That's not an issue, and I'm not complaining at all. But I felt compelled because events, especially all of the evidence that we have had accumulating over the last 3 months of the horrendous catastrophe that is underway at Fukushima, that is many, many, many times greater than has been thus far acknowledged. But there were some questions that I've been dying to ask, and now is the time when they need to be asked. So I wrote today a letter to Arnie Gundersen, which I'm going to read to you right now, which contain, I think, the most important questions of all for us when it comes to Fukushima and nuclear radiation and our immediate future right now. Dated today. An open letter to Arnie Gundersen, Chief Engineer, fairwinds.org. Open invitation for response to Helen Caldecott, Chris Busby, and any nuclear expert qualified willing to answer. Subject: State of spent fuel pools, SFPs, and nuclear inventory at Fukushima Daiichi. Urgent request for full disclosure or best available information in the immediate public interest. Dear Mr. Gundersen, I will present this question as though it were offered at an open mic press conference and I was a journalist, which I happen to be. First, great thanks and deep respect to you for your conduct and ceaseless professional efforts since March 11, 2001. I have twice invited you to be a guest on my radio show, The Lifeboat Hour, on the Progressive Radio Network. You have declined once and failed to respond once. Nonetheless, through my Facebook page and my radio show since the earthquake tsunami, I have relentlessly posted or discussed almost everything you and so many others have done in service to life and truth in the wake of this ongoing tragedy. And I'm deeply grateful to you, Arnie Gunderson. We all are. A multitude of recent stories suggest that far higher amounts of radiation have been released atmospherically and or into the Pacific than has been admitted. Examples include a very significant spike in childhood cancers, infant mortality along the west coast of the U.S., thyroid cancers in Malibu. Scientific reports that 28% of the polar bears tested in the Arctic recently revealed skin lesions, hair loss, tumors, and collapsing colonies of starfish, which are dissolving all the way from Washington to Northern California. Vancouver, actually. Recent radiation spikes have been detected far inland on the North American continent. Measured radiation levels have been increasing recently to the point of being the highest since the explosions. It has been disclosed that Japan continues to incinerate radioactive waste. There are many more which I do not have time to present. I trust you have seen them mostly on E&A News. I will couple this with only two pieces of evidence in the Fukushima chronology that will lead to a series of questions which I consider the most important questions that need to be answered, that must be answered, in furtherance of humankind's right to know the truth. Fact 1. Examination of an abundance of photos of reactor building 3 after the hydrogen explosion show that there are no upper floors remaining at all at Unit 3, anywhere above the reactor vessel. It is a GE Mark I reactor, and the SFP, that's the spent fuel pool, was several floors above the ground. None of those photos or videos show anything resembling an SFP. We know that Reactor 3's spent fuel pool was full and that it contained the ultra-deadly MOX fuel, which SPF-4 did not. Fact 2. NRC documents released through FOIA requests and obtained by Internet journalist Patrick Penry, which have been posted on the web, and we have seen, state that, quote, 100% of the spent fuel at Unit 4, end quote, had been burned in uncontrolled reactions in the days after the tsunami. I have made a career from forensic document analysis. That's how I wrote Crossing the Rubicon. You yourself have referred, I believe, to partial burns and zirconium fires at SPF-4. I remember that clearly. On the Lifeboat Hour of August 25th of this year, my guest Helen Caldecott stated, confirming others, that the cesium content of SFP-4 was the equivalent of 10 Chernobyls. I am compelled to ask the following questions with the highest and deepest sense of urgency. I pray that you will help us to find answers quickly. I have not seen these questions previously asked or answered. Sincerely and with great thanks, Michael C. Rupert, author, journalist. Now, here are the questions. This is what we need to know. And that's what I spent my whole life doing, is finding the information that you needed to know. Whether you wanted to know it or not, I knew that it was what you needed to know. Question 1. Has all of the fuel at SPF-4, spent fuel pool 4, been burned? If not, how much remains? How much was burned? How much radiation has been released? And has this been accounted for publicly? Question 2. Where is SFP-3? In what conditions are its contents? In the early days, you reported that fuel pellets were scattered widely from the hydrogen explosion. I remember that clearly, Arnie. Were those pellets from the core or from the spent fuel pool? There are recent mainstream press accounts saying that spent fuel pool 3 still needs to be emptied. Where is it? Question 3. What is the condition of the spent fuel pools at Units 1 and 2? Is it possible that the contents of those fuel pools have already been completely combusted? Question number 4. How much radiation is contained in the spent fuel pools of 1, 2, and 3 in total? Helen Caldecott has stated that at the entire Fukushima Daiichi site, there is the equivalent of 85 Chernobyls. That would include 6 spent fuel pools. Question 5. If spent fuel pools at 1, 2, and 3 have been combusted along with 4, is this not an astronomically higher release of radiation than what has been thus far acknowledged? Question 6. If the SFPs at 1, 2, 3, and 4 in any combination have burned and released atmospherically, is this or is this not an apocalyptic universal extinction event in terms of atmospheric release? I tagged in this a lot of people, a lot of professional journalists, a lot of people who have been out here in the hope that these questions would get to you, because these are obvious questions, and you're the guy, Arnie Gunderson, or anybody else who can answer. But Arnie, you're the guy we trust, and we need to know this, because we cannot trust in any way, shape, or form what is being told to us through mainstream or by TEPCO. Too many conflicting reports, and these are life and death questions. So, that being said, a very stressful week, and the week was made even more stressful when I came home from going into Salida to have some chicken fingers with my friend Jesse Ray, and came back, and my dog Rags, extremely disoriented over the disappearance of his friend Squishy, had run off. And it was the following 5 days were probably the hardest. It's hard to say, but they were some of the hardest days of my entire life. Incredible pain, searching, doing everything that I could. I'm going to tell you how Rags was found in a minute, but this is a setup, because as I compare what happened with Rags and the way I felt inside, I could not help but see and feel that there was a remarkable similarity between the way all of us feel as we look at a future that looks to be full of loss and grief. Great questioning, great courage being shown, but there was an underlying core feeling that all we would like to do is find our way home. And that's our first song for tonight, Stevie Winwood, the amazing Stevie Winwood, and the song is Can't Find My Way Home. And I can just picture Rags out there saying it, and I was singing it too. Here we go. favorite all-time songs, first released by a band Stevie Winwood was in with Eric Clapton and Jack Bruce, called Blind Faith. About 1970, that was recorded in the 80s sometime. Stevie Winwood, Can't Find My Way Home. So, we get down to Wednesday of last week, and I'd been working with two animal communicators. I'd reached out to two of them, telepathic communicators, since Rags had disappeared Friday, and they'd been remarkably good. I knew they were making touch with him. Like, not only could I feel it in my gut, they would come back with landmarks like red pickup trucks, yellow houses. That was how he would communicate. He can't read addresses and doesn't know what street signs are. And I would go and I would look around, I would find those, and then that confirmed with sightings that there was something true. Yeah, I saw him moving east. But the second animal communicator, which I talked to late on Tuesday night, she was very helpful. She was very clear that Rags had moved into an area where he had come across bear scat, and all of them said that he was handling himself extremely well. He was avoiding dangerous situations. He would go near dogs because he had a craving to be near dogs, but he was being polite, and that he had seen, she said, a mountain lion. Well, I thought, wow, there's no mountain lions anywhere near close to the valley floor where I live, the valley floor being at 8,100 feet. But there are mountain lions east as you go toward the Sangre de Cristo Range, which is the southern tip of the Rockies here in Colorado. I thought, gee, that's a long way east. If you've seen a mountain lion, she said, she laughed and she said, yeah, he went, that's not something I see every day. Never seen a mountain lion before. So he stayed low. And everybody was clear that he was handling himself well. So on Wednesday morning, and this was 5 days of no sleep and heartbreak and but I wasn't giving up, man. I tacked up underwear and Rags' bed on to telephone poles so to leave scent trails. I'd never stopped going out to look, and any time there was a sighting, I was out, sunset and daybreak. And anyway, but I got an email Wednesday morning from Trudy Ann Tellis, my friend on Facebook, and she said she had contacted a Reiki master. His name is Guruji J. Pradna in India. And she was so clear. She got back to me. He's spoken to Rags. And Rags said he's near a pond. Now, I only know of one pond here in the area. It's about 1.5 miles south of the house here, and I've been around there 50 times. But then I started thinking, yeah, pond, mountain lion. This is a huge valley, and the ponds are not easily visible. This is remote stuff. So instantly I called my bandmate Doug Lewis, and Squishy Lewis had not been eating. Squishy, Rags' best friend, had not been eating while Rags was missing. And both animal communicators were emphatic that Rags and Squishy were in touch, and Squishy was crazed because Rags was lost, dazed, confused, and hungry, and Rags thought Squishy was sick because he wasn't eating. But it was clear that they were so in touch, and what they were saying was neither one of them really understood what had happened to the other and why they'd been separated. Well, Guruji J. Pradna in India said Rags was near a pond, and so I called Doug immediately. I said, Doug, are there any ponds around here? And he says, well, call John Mattingly. Now, John Mattingly is a dear friend of mine and Doug's, who sold Doug the house we're in. And John was a pioneer farmer who developed much of the agriculture and knows the water in the San Luis Valley better than any human being alive. And John said, well, yeah, I built some ponds way up Road CC, which is way going up toward the mountains, toward the head of Cottonwood Trail. And he told me where they were. I had no idea where these ponds were, none. But, man, I was convinced that the message that Rags was near a pond was true. And so I got the directions from John, and I drove. It's between 5.5 and 6 miles east of the house, up toward the mountains, probably at about 10,000 feet. And you are getting into both bear country and mountain lion country up there. And I found the ponds. They were off a dirt road. I drove them all beat up, hoopty up the dirt road, and I drove around slowly with the windows down for about 10, 15 minutes. Rags, just yelling at the top of my lungs. There was nothing around, absolutely nothing around there. This was just a series of ponds. I got out once and walked and stood and yelled, Rags, and Drove around again, and I was getting ready to leave, but I just had a feeling that he was there, that this was the right spot. And on the way out, I stopped again and started walking a little further southeast, down the slope from the ponds where a creek runs out. I'm just yelling, "Rags, Rags!" And from behind me, I heard his dog tags click. And I turned around, and he came walking real slow, tired and disoriented out of the bushes. And we were, you can imagine, we were so happy to see each other. Now, that's an absolute miracle to me that happened. I had no knowledge of those ponds, and it's proof of telepathic communication. And all of us who know this know that on Facebook, more than 1,000 likes, are people all over the world. And I got some very powerful and wonderful, great family, spiritual friends. People were praying like crazy because I was lost. And he is, Rags has been with me for a long time, and he and I are a team. And I wasn't going to give up ever, but there was so much prayer and so much love and so much energy. And it paid off. Absolutely stunning. I still pinch myself to this moment when I heard his tags and I turned around and I just felt this amazing sense of gratitude. That love, and that's a technology. That's when we talk about suppressed technologies. The suppressed technologies are what the infinite growth paradigm, the Catholic Church, and all of the Abrahamic religions have been trying to kill in their relentless persecution and genocide of indigenous cultures, indigenous ways, and the wisdom of the peoples who have kept this knowledge of how to live open and available for us, even now at the hour of our death. And we covered that a lot last week. Been covering it nonstop. But these technologies and energies now, as abundantly and overwhelmingly and ever more frequently confirmed by particle physics research, tell us that love is a frequency. Frequency, vibration determines physical reality, and that we cannot be allowed to use these technologies with hearts that are full of fear, because all we will do is create more of what we so well seem to be creating right now, but probably at an even faster speed. So that was one miracle that my dog, I used to call him Doofus, lovingly, and he used to like it, but, he'd wag his tail. But never again. To me, he is Saint Rags. He performed an amazing miracle, an amazing service for all of us. So many messages on Facebook that their act of prayer, our acts of faith in wanting to reunite based on nothing but love, have energized and given a lot of hope to people now when we can't seem to find our way home. And it is proof, it is affirming, loving proof that love and loving action still means a great deal, and it makes you feel so much better. We're at the bottom of the hour. There's another miracle from Rags. I'll cover that when we come back, and I got some great Facebook comments this week, and we will absorb and wrap ourselves into all of the place in which we find ourselves after these messages. Michael C. Rupert, Tracker of Truth on the Lifeboat Hour here on PRN. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned to PRN.FM for more empowering ideas from progressive voices. We're moving forward, and we hope you're coming with us.
Hello, everyone. Richard Martin here from the Wake Up Call with news of Monday's show. Now, I've talked about historical events which led up to the 2008 meltdown and subsequent non-recovery. On Monday, I'll be investigating the way in which changing attitudes and subtle, behind-the-scenes social manipulation have been going on for over 40 years, making us unaware of the grim future they have in store for us. So do join me on Monday, November the 25th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time here on PRN.
Hi, this is Jim Bretos, your host of The Rebbe, The Radical, and The Rev on Progressive Radio Network. This Monday evening, November 25th at 8 p.m., we will have on live Erica Young, the iconic feminist author of more than 20 books, including Fear of Flying, one of the greatest books ever written on women's sexual fantasy and liberation. So join me and Beatty Cohen-Bretos of the Ask Beatty Show on the Progressive Radio Network and call in live to Erica Young as we explore the world of relationships, feminism, the sexual revolution, and the hookup on the Rebbe, the Radical, and the Rev this Monday evening, November 25th at 8 p.m.
Are you craving real talk about parenting today? I'm Louise Kuo-Habakis.
And I'm Allison McNeil.
We are the co-hosts of Fearless Parent Radio. If you feel like your instincts are better than 90% of what you're hearing, it's time to tune in to a provocative new show that's funny, smart, and honest. Fear sells, but not here. From hair in the sink to hair on end, nothing is off limits.
Tune in to hear writers, experts, and parents with guts and strong opinions. Listen Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern at prn.fm. If you miss the show live, catch us 24/7 on iTunes for a radio show that's blasting through fear and finding a dynamic way forward.
This is Bobby Elias.
And it's Dr. Sarah Larson,
hosts of Let's Create a Better World. Our show is for your body, mind, and soul to have the latest, greatest cultural, creative information available.
Join us with our expert guests every Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.
You can also hear our show on the phone at 619-550-0869.
And don't forget about the archives.
We're moving forward on PRN.FM.
And we want you to come with us.
Saturdays, don't forget. Every Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific. Let's create a better world.
This is PRN, the comprehensive news source for the world's progressive community. We're moving forward, and we hope you're coming with us.
And that's the sun we'd like to live in, the sun of love, where that energy makes things available to us that have not been available to us without. We want to go find those suppressed technologies all you right-wingers are worried about. Then we need to go talk to the indigenous peoples all over the world. Let's start with Chief Averell Looking Horse, or any of the great shamans, tribal leaders, chiefs that are out there, medicine women that are out there, and say, okay, show us what they are. It's funny that that song that brought us back was a New White Trash song. I have two more songs for you tonight, one of which will be a New White Trash song toward the end. But now we get to the fun part. I should have added before the break that when I called Doug Lewis and told him that I had found Rags, I was crying like a baby. And so was Doug. And, Doug said the funniest thing, Squishy, Rags' lifelong companion who had to move back to Northern California because Doug's got to take care of his very ailing mother, hadn't eaten in 4 days. And just about 5 minutes before I called Doug, Squishy ate a full meal, started eating. Squishy knew that Rags had been found. So much evidence that there is so much more than we can see with the five senses. Absolute proof that spiritual places driven by love, using spiritual means, can do things that nothing else can do. And I am very grateful to a Reiki master. By the way, the word Reiki is made up of two Japanese words, Rei, which means God's wisdom or the higher power. We would call it great mystery here. And Ki, which means life force energy. So Reiki is actually spiritually guided life force energy, and there is so much more. Alas, Horatio, there is more in heaven and earth, and more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. So now we come to the second miracle. I had only been home with Rags for about 30 minutes and was nursing him. He actually did really well. He looks great. He's not hurt. He was obviously very, very tired, very hungry, very dehydrated, but he came through just fine. Had to pull some cactus spines out of him and, burrs and stuff like that, but he's doing well. And the phone rings. And way back, I guess it was late August or in September, a couple of really good musicians. Their group name is the Co-Poetics, but they are Louisa, and Dan, and found me at a restaurant outside of Crestone, Colorado, and came up to me and approached me. And they were passing through on their way to the West Coast from South Dakota to do. They're just a traveling troubadour musicians, finding and booking gigs along the way a day or two in advance. I helped them out with a Facebook post. They stayed here, and we hung out while Doug was here, and while we had the studio set up, and we had a great time. And they went off on their tour of the West Coast, and they were going to be there they worked all the way from, I think, Seattle all the way down to San Diego. Didn't have such a good time in Southern California, but had a great time all the way through Washington, Oregon, and Northern Cal. And they performed in a great many places and did very well, but the energy changed, and they had suddenly changed their mind, decided it was time to head back home to South Dakota. And they called me because they were on their way. They were, I think, crossing into New Mexico, like 30 minutes after I'd come home with Rags. And I said, God, I got this empty house. Doug is gone. Squishy is gone. And get up here. Stop on your way. And that turned out to be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. They left yesterday morning, and they're snowed in. And so here is what I was projecting energetically, or what looked like was going to be an empty, dark house in in a cold winter, and suddenly for 3 days the house was a band house. It was full of music. My friend Jesse Ray came over, other people came over. We feasted, and there was live music being made in this house, and they happened to have a dog for Rags to play with, Reva, and cool dog, little flighty but cool, very cool dog. And like this house was alive with music and cooking, and I put a picture of a dinner we had up on my Facebook page. But it was as if somehow Rags and I together manifested, created energetically this amazing scene that happened. And here's the kick: is that I'm going to play a song by the Co-Poetics, by Louisa and Dan, and it was played live along with a ton of music right in the living room of what used to be a band house where the studio's broken down, but the music came anyway. And the song has a great title. You can find them, by the way, at thecopoetics.com, Louisa and Dan. And here's a song called Job's Tears.
Go well, may these tears redeem me. Fortune falling, kneel beneath me, respond to my cries. Friends forsake me, make me anger with words. What do you say? Say what you mean, I too mean to tell. Go well, may these tears redeem me. Go well, take me, use me, just free me. Go well, do you say? Say what you mean, I too mean to tell. Go well, may these tears redeem me. Go well, take me, use me, just free me. Wonder at the day, will it go away? What is all this for? Why oh, why oh? Take away my wealth, challenging my health, no money for hope. Why oh, why oh? You who stand so near, grinning ear to ear, also quick to judge. Why oh, why oh? Rivers running dry, people left to die. How much do we know? Why oh, why oh? May these tears redeem me. Defeated I lie, leave me to die. The salt of my tears cares to dry. You give no hope, hope no more lives. There's nothing left for me. What do you say? Say what you mean, I too mean to tell. Go well, may these tears redeem me. Go well, take me, use me, just free me. Wonder at the day, will it go away? What is all this for? Why oh, why oh? Take away my wealth, challenging my health, no money for hope. Why oh, why oh? You who stand so near, grinning ear to ear, also quick to judge. Why oh, why oh? Rivers running dry, people left to die. How much do we know? Why oh, why oh?
And Dan, the Co-Poetics. We're here in my living room in the house with Rags the day I brought him home, and they were here for 3 nights, and this house was full of live music. It was a band house. It was full of love. It was a nice communal living place that I love to be in. And so that's the second great miracle of Rags, and I'm grateful to Louisa and Dan. I wish them well. They're on their way home. They left yesterday morning, driving back to South Dakota. You can find them at copoetics.com, and they're a really good act and extremely, as you can hear, extremely gifted. One more song, but I want to go now to some Facebook quotes, comments of the week, and I think I'm going to start doing this every week now, just because these comments are so enriching, and they really signify and prove to me that that there is a solid community of us here and around the world, and if our community is this big, there are tens, hundreds of millions, perhaps billions, a billion people who are on this page and vibrating with the same kind of energy, love, and focus that brought Rags home. But here are some of the great comments on Facebook for the week. Dave Ashton wrote, "In my opinion, any and all suggestions of evacuation from the West Coast are bullshit. More people would die from disease, starvation, and fright as a result of the evacuation than would die if the entire cooling pool on building number 4 blew sky high. Real estate prices would plummet, causing a gigantic banking crisis, a derivative implosion 1,000,000 times worse than Fukushima, and our bank cards probably would no longer work. I'm not suggesting that anybody try this, but it wouldn't be a bad time to smash and grab some of the new HD flat-screen TVs, a bunch of iPods, and some other goodies. Think of all the loot you could haul. Imagine hiding out until everyone's gone and then occupying some seaside mansion for free. Hell, you might not live long, but you could live well. I suppose that a radiation-resistant strain of mutant trolls are going to guard our homes and businesses while we're away." Yeah, right. Marie Garand wrote, and this was more serious, "Nature, the first people, and the spirit of our ancestors are giving you loud warnings. Today, December 10, 1992. This is a quote from a speech given at the United Nations by a Hopi elder in 1992. Marie posted this. "Nature, the first people, and the spirit of our ancestors are giving you loud warnings. Today, December 10, 1992. You see increasing floods, more damaging hurricanes, hailstorms, climate changes, and earthquakes, as our prophecies said would come. Even animals and birds are warning us with a strange change in their behavior, such as the beaching of whales. Why do animals act like they know about the Earth's problem, and most humans act like they know nothing? If we humans do not wake up to the warnings, the great purification will come to destroy this world just as the previous worlds were destroyed." That was Hopi Elder Thomas Banyasya, Banyacya. I hope I pronounced it right, at the UN. The Hopi prophecies are indeed being fulfilled, and that is more abundant confirmation that the indigenous peoples have been carrying the messages they carry for this time now. I need to repeat that. This one made me roll on the floor. Henry Knowles writes, "Well, Scotty has failed to beam my ass out of here, and I would run off and become a hermit in the mountains, but they'd probably arrest me for eating fish. I mean, catching it without a license and not getting the wild berry plants approved by the fucking FDA, not to mention getting a permit before piling up logs in the shape of a square and throwing some tree branches on top of it and staying out of the rain in it. So can someone just kill me now? This slow suicide we're in is driving me crazy, and I don't want to die crazy." That was hilarious. That really triggered a whole bunch of great responses. A few minutes later, Jonathan DeYoung wrote, "Too late, dude. We're all crazy. I've done the survival thing, and I know where you live. You don't want to be that cold and hypothermic. Trust me. Go do non-doomer things and reconnect. All is well, and you will be too, one way or another. Peace. Reconnect. That is a great opportunity for us now." Rick Cook made a comment on another thread. "Mike, glad you came full circle on this bizarre ride and recognize now that we are where we need to be, and it is a great gift and extraordinary opportunity. I was up the hill from you at the time of Kennedy and Evergreen, but about the age of 8 was more conscious of the overwhelming sadness that followed. Find it interesting that again we are in proximity year after a year. Del Norte ended settling near Dolores, Colorado to finish out this amazing journey. Do know a couple of people, at least out here, that appreciate greatly your honesty through the years. Know that you have done more than your share to help people see, and it's up to them now. Those who know give. Thanks for your presence, and if nothing else, look forward to seeing you on the other side. Rick Cook." My really good friend, Michael Montes, said, "I don't mean to be negative, but as good as it is, This is in the mainstream media. My own opinion is that we are not seeing a mass awakening as much as a mass shift in direction of the herd. Good point. Simply a shift in the unconscious message being uncommunicated and listened to. We can't let our individual vigilance slip. The herd is always the herd, and the battles will be fought for leadership of the herd. It is good that the herd is hearing the message, but the herd will always need leaders, and it will follow leaders who serve themselves or leaders who selfishly serve from the heart, with the heart. The herd, including the mainstream media, will follow whichever leaders are brave or cruel enough to claim the responsibility. That was a great quote. And Michael also had another comment. Michael, and yet all the things we don't want to come to be are coming to be. Why is that? What manifests is what is most strongly and clearly envisioned. The enemy knows this, and yes, there is an enemy, but it's primarily an enemy of life, not primarily an enemy to us. The enemy turns their visions into missions, their missions into plans, and their plans into action. We put our visioning energy into fighting the enemy instead of visioning counsels, as they do. We need to do both. It sucks, it's unfair, but that's the way it is. While the scout circle is gathering knowledge and the warrior circle is preparing, the shaman circle must be visioning. Where is the shaman circle? If we want the truth to manifest, that there are no real borders, that there is no separation, that there are no enemies, then that world must be envisioned. It has not been. The truth is that the universe is aching to give us what we want, but it hears from us what we don't want. So the universe gives us that. The universe is a loving and loyal hunting dog. It will bring back what we send for. Great comments. I'm going to be doing that every week now. Ton of wisdom being shared. Great fundraising. Thank yous. You know that I do what I do for free. I'm in good shape right now. I don't need anything, and that's the other thing that I do with this in the gift economy is I don't holler for it unless I need it. I'll give the address again out some other show, but Rags and I are just fine right now. But deep fundraising thank yous with great appreciation for sending me your love to Angela Wong Ravensblood, Diana Wayburn, Cindy Blackshear, Carl Klein, Peter Arena, Tom Herbstritt, Ricky Peebles, Frank Damiano, thank you, Frank, Nick Kucha from New South Wales, who sent me from some Aussie dollars, and Austin Everly. Austin Everly, thank you. All of you, thank you so much. Down toward the end of the show. It was 50 years ago, on the 22nd of November, 1963, that as a 12-year-old seventh grader, I fell to the floor and just put my back against this sturdy cinder block wall outside the auditorium at Bear Creek Junior High School. It was a brand new school in Littleton, Colorado, junior, senior combined. And for the first time in my life, I felt utterly overwhelmed, helpless, and alone. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, President of the United States, had just minutes before been assassinated in Dallas, Texas. 4.5 years after that, in the early morning hours of June 6, 1968, when I was a junior at Venice High School in Los Angeles, John's brother Bobby was assassinated at the Ambassador Hotel about 8 miles from where I lived. 10 years and 4 days after JFK was assassinated, it'll be 40 years ago that I was sworn into LAPD on the 30th of this month, on the 26th, day after tomorrow, Tuesday. It'll be 40 years. 10 years and 4 days after JFK was assassinated, I was sworn in as a Los Angeles police officer. I did not know it until 1992, but I would wind up being groomed and ultimately nearly killed by the same CIA assets inside LAPD who had carried out the CIA operation to kill Bobby Kennedy. Looking back over the years, I remember thinking over and over as I struggled to awaken people my whole life. Through JFK, RFK, MLK, Vietnam, Iran-Contra, CIA and drugs, the savings and loan scandal, Gulf War I, the stolen 2000 election, September 11th, the Patriot Act, Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, Occupy, the NDAA, NSA wiretapping, Deepwater Horizon, fracking, and Fukushima. Over and over again, all these years, and I knew this clearly when I resigned from LAPD, that if we had only found the courage, the strength, and the will, the love of future generations, the responsibility to future generations to have confronted those so obvious crimes, we could have avoided much of this now that we are in. But that wasn't to be, and I have, in retrospect, I see this now, this moment, as a great gift, and it is for us, with all the lights I see standing up as we face our death. Let us, it's a great opportunity. It was destined for all of us. Let us embrace it all together. A lot of stuff to chew on this week. I'm going to close the show with a song from New White Trash, one that I sing, one that I wrote, with my bandmate Doug Lewis and Squishy. And the song is called Long Cold Winter. And I'm going to leave you with that tonight, but I will be back with you next week in the month of December in the year 2013 as Tracker of Truth. Good night.
High sky silver at dawn contains too many chemical trails in the autumn. And like that old Italian saying says, everything all goes to the bottom. It's gonna be a long, cold winter, my friend. It's gonna be a long, hot summer without end. We were younger then and we were fooled by credit card, shopping malls, Santa Claus and Bankarama. Now Sitting Bull is sitting away out on a range, waiting on a change to come and rearrange. He'll wait forever. It's gonna be a long, cold winter, my friend. It's gonna be a long, hot summer without end. And the page in the novel, and surrender to the flames of a consciousness in chains. Witchy woman begin to blow. Do the warriors have the paint? Are they sturdy in the saddle? Riding into battle, a master hide their faces. From his grave, Thomas Paine is rolling in his old bones, ghostly by the fire with Jefferson at home in old Virginia. My seven sisters hear how the night dives in, and it's getting late. No dawn in sight.